Looks like it's going. It is. Okay, right. We're live. All right. This is Michael Yon. I am in Japan. Recently left Texas. This is my library for Masako and Michael's library. And actually, this is part of it. And as you can see, we stay busy in this library quite a lot. I recently left Texas, and then the flood happened right shortly after I left. And by the way, I published about something that happened in the airport as I was leaving, and I met Dave Petraeus in the airport. You might want to look at my Substack and look at that post about meeting Dave Petraeus in the airport. That was quite interesting. In any case, I landed in Japan, and then we saw those terrible floods that happened near the area actually I had just left. And Doc Pete Chambers, my friend, sorry, Masako is running the camera and she's putting the tablet here so that I can see comments when they come in. And so Doc Chambers, I asked Doc Chambers, who's running for governor in Texas, by the way, that would be an incredible replacement for Abbott. But so Doc Chambers, I asked him, should I fly straight back from Japan, straight back to Texas? I mean, am I of any good back there that I can't do here? And he said, no, stay put. And I asked also another friend in Texas, and he gave me the same answer. The best is to just stay here and help coordinate people, which I did, which you'd be surprised how much you can do with just a keyboard and a big Rolodex. It's quite a lot. And so so I didn't go back, but I've been watching a lot of this activity with the flood. It was tragic, and there will be more. I've seen a lot of flash floods in places like Afghanistan. They're very intense there. They're common down in the Darien Gap. They happen all the time. If you look on my Substack, I published one video talking about 160 people died from just one flash flood. They were happening constantly, and they're happening all the time in Darien Gap, right? And so flash floods are common, and that's something that I want to talk about specifically. So there's a lot of the normal arguments have unfolded about whether this is weather modification or something along those lines. Now, let's get down to some ideas on this. First of all, we know we're in a state of war. That's clear from the death jabs, the borders, the non-existent borders, and this invasion is far from over, by the way. That's another topic for another time. And also many other things that have been happening. But we know we're in a state of war. The screwworms that are coming into the United States now, which Masako and I predicted 4 years ago, many times, very publicly, and nobody knew what the screwworms were back then, but we were right. And we were right about Nord Stream and Groningen gas fields being shut. We were right about so many things. And why are we so often right? Because we pay attention to the ocean currents, let's say, of this whole. This is a tiny fraction of the library I've assembled over the years, right? I spend a lot of time in these books. I spend a lot of time in war, a lot of time traveling the world, and a lot of time my nose is practically part of a book. And it has been since I've been a young child. And if you put your hand on any book behind me here, it's part of an architecture. These aren't random books, right? It's part of an architecture of knowledge that I've tried to develop over the years, and hopefully with some success in trying to predict what's happening, what's going to happen next, with some degree of better certainty than we get from the experts, right? And so I'm constantly working on developing my paradigms and my input information, so that I can. And Masako and I we constantly practice, trying to predict things and getting better and better at it. So what I'm getting to is with the floods that just happened, were they a part of weather modification? On one level, it actually doesn't matter, right? It matters if you're doing lawsuits and that sort of thing, of course. But on another level, we know that weather modification is happening. Now, I see people still arguing in 2025 whether weather modification is even real. I assure you it's real. Look on my Substack, you can see cartoons from the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s about weather modification. literally the 1930s, right? I've got a book here somewhere from the 1800s on weather modification. I've got quite a lot of books here on weather modification, actually, and they're old. They're not, these aren't books from yesterday. I didn't even bother to pull them out because I wanted to talk about other things. But at the end of the day, weather modification is absolutely real. But whether that happened in this case, I do not know. Maybe somebody else knows, and certainly they would know if they were involved in actually doing it. But we do know that genocide is unfolding. That is just a fact, right? And so now let's talk about water infrastructure, the removal of water infrastructure. First of all, let's talk about um, Masako. Can we put up that screen from Europe here? Let me get a sip of water. Okay, dam removal, Europe. Mm, okay. One of the reasons that we have such a large population on Earth now is that we are so much better at using resources, right? For instance, we can get much more out of the land because of advanced agricultural methods, right? In the Panama Canal, Suez Canal, big ships, fast trains. We have so many ways that the population has grown, and these can be dismantled as well, right? And water infrastructure is one of those things. There are many types of water infrastructure. Misako and I walked for about an hour yesterday just looking at water infrastructure in Japan, talking about at the lowest level, why are the roads curved, and going to the gutters and that sort of thing. And at the higher level, of course, you've got dams and we've got dikes and levees and that sort of thing. What's the difference between a dike and a levee, right? And this is important. A dike, like there are so many over in Netherlands, a dike and a levee is almost the same. There's a slight difference, and so people use it interchangeably, but there's a slight difference. With a dike, the dike is keeping land dry that normally would be wet, right? Whereas a levee is keeping land dry that sometimes gets wet from say, an overflowing river or a flash flood, right? So a levee, like we had a huge flood in the United States in 1927, the Mississippi flood. There's songs about it. I mean, there's poems and books, and I've got a bunch of those books. I mean, it's incredible. And then there was another one 10 years later, 1930. There was so many, it's unbelievable, but some were pretty earth shattering for the United States. And that 1927 Mississippi flood, what happened? Dikes broke. I mean, sorry, levees broke. And which people sometimes call dikes. But one of the things about levees, in fact, a levee, of course, is sort of it's like a giant, curb or gutter. We've got, when you're walking on the sidewalk and you see the curbs. The curbs are basically tiny little levees. Actually, they guide the water off the street into the drainage or retention ponds or whatever. So those are little guides. So those little curbs that we see, those are actually little tiny levees, right? And so the larger levees that you find next to these big rivers all over the United States and all over here in Japan and in Europe, those large levees are very interesting. I mean, because if you look at these, many were built a long time ago. People have built levees for thousands of years. People have built canals for thousands of years. Nobody knows when the first canals and levees and all these different parts of water infrastructure were built. But levees are very interesting because they can help. First of all, you can put cities, like if you look at Tokyo and you look at the levee system here, which Misako and I did recently last week or so. We went to a local library and we pulled out one of those 3D plastic relief maps. I love those things. And you can see the levee system is actually on the relief. You can put your finger and feel it. And you can see that the levees going right through Tokyo. Now, if those levees break for some reason, during a huge flood, a lot of Tokyo certainly could be flooded and probably would be like New Orleans that happened in 2005 with Hurricane Katrina, right? And so the levees broke and there was huge death toll in New Orleans. It could have been even worse. But at the end of the day, the levees are interesting in and of themselves. In warfare, often people destroy the levees in an act of war. For instance, the Chinese in the Yellow River destroyed their own levees to stop Japanese encroachment. It's a huge death toll, massive. The Yellow River is, of course, the sorrow of China, is what they call it sometimes. But there's a huge water infrastructure system around the Yellow River. A lot of it's levees, right? And during World War II, the Dutch broke some of their dikes. Actually, again, a dike is it's like a levee, but it's to keep places dry that are normally wet. So it's the photo negative, let's say, of a levee. And so the Dutch broke some of the dikes to stop the Germans from invading, and then the Germans later broke a bunch of the dikes to stop allies, right? So I mean, these, and when we were in Afghanistan, the Taliban often would use they would reroute water, break little tiny levees and that sort of thing, and reroute water and get us stuck in the mud. I've got actually an excellent book here called Mud. Every military person that works on the ground should read about mud. Anyway, but levees. You might see in the United States there are something called levee wars. Communities that can afford to put up levees around their communities, they can keep the water out of their beautiful neighborhoods. But then people that can't afford it, they can get flooded, because one of the things about levees is they stop the water from going to land that water historically would go to. So it doesn't have any place to go. Levees speed up the water, like going down the rivers and that sort of thing. And you can have a much larger water flow going down the river because it's kept between those levee lanes. I mean, you can see lanes of levees that go hundreds of miles. I mean, look at the Mississippi River. I mean, I mean, there's got to be many thousands of miles of levees in the United States, and I'm sure a lot of dikes as well, and of course many dams, right? And so this water infrastructure. One thing about dams, by the way, and levees and dikes and infrastructure in general, all of it is impermanent. Everything is temporary. All dams are temporary. The dam engineers will tell you that. I've got quite a few books on dams. That's an interesting world in and of itself. And all dams are temporary. All dikes, all levees are temporary. All this infrastructure, even if nobody is intentionally sabotaging it. For instance, if Japan went into war with China, China could use rockets to take out levees here and dams here in Japan. Of course, Japan can take out Three Gorges Dam, and that would be a bad day for China. So I mean, and so, but what I'm getting to is even there's no war or no malfeasance. There's a lot of work that has to go to keep these levees alive, right? To keep these dams alive. If Mosul Dam breaks in Mosul, Iraq, Mosul's gone. I wrote about this in 2005, 6, 7, I think, multiple times. And the Mosul Dam, if that breaks, it's going, and it's got problems, right? All dams are temporary. And so now, as economies fade, and people want, anybody in business watching this, is certainly a business that's capital intensive and requires machinery. You know that if your business if you've ever been in a business that's gotten into trouble and you have financial problems, one of the first things that stops is, of course, advertisement. The advertisers hate that, but also another thing that stops happening is maintenance, right? So people stop maintaining their machines. They stop maintaining the infrastructure. When Masako and I were going for a walk yesterday, talking about that, whenever we go somewhere into a grocery store or have to check into a hotel somewhere, if the wheels on the little carts at a hotel are bad, if the cart is bad, the hotel generally is bad. I mean, that's a really serious uh, indicator. And I've noticed that since I was a kid in Florida. My first real job that had a paycheck was, with numbers on it, with not just money numbers, but tax numbers and all that, was when I was 14. working at Publix in Winter Haven, Florida. And when you work at Publix, I think I did like 3 days of training or something to be a bag boy. I was 14, and one of the things that we were taught is if there's any problem with a cart, you deadline that cart immediately. It doesn't go back and get reused until we fix it. No cart in Publix should have a wobbly wheel or squeaky or pull to the left or the right or any of that nonsense, because Publix wanted to be known for quality. I mean, even bag boys went to bag boy training. I mean, it was a great first job. Actually, they taught professionalism. But the point is you go to grocery stores or hotels and the carts don't work. The rest of the experience is probably going to be have some problems. But because they stop doing the basic maintenance, they hire employees that aren't quite up to snuff. But that's what's going to happen with water infrastructure. We can see it with our roads already. We can see potholes everywhere. You get down to El Paso and it looks like Mexico. I mean, they got like sticks in the potholes the way they do in many countries that I go to, so that people don't, basically drive off and disappear into these giant potholes sometimes. You got tires over the potholes. That's El Paso, Texas, right? And just no maintenance because they're putting it into whatever they're putting it into, left-wing nonsense. But at the end of the day, some of the water infrastructure issues are due to bad maintenance. Other issues are clearly sabotage. For instance, and some of it's intentional. See this, Masako, thank you. If you can put this up here. Let's see. Oh, I see some comments. Thank you, Apollo, for doing that and for reposting. And thank you, Bill. So this is a website, dam removal in Europe, right? And it's in English, as you can see. And they're talking about 9,003 so far. And you may have seen that giant flood about a year ago in Spain. It was a terrific flood, and it destroyed infrastructure that had been there since the Roman days, right? So I asked somebody to go over there and take a look at that. What in the world happened, right? And it turns out some of the water infrastructure had been removed. And so, was that the cause of it? Could be. Here's the thing: if you're living somewhere in the United States or Europe or here in Japan, and infrastructure has either not been maintained or it's actually just been removed as part of the depopulation program, you might not know about it until there's a big rain that you may not even see. The rain could be 30 miles away. It could be up in the mountains. It could be a series of rains that happened over weeks, actually, everything's swollen. And the next thing you know, a big rain happens and boom, and your whole town gets wiped out. And it gets wiped out. And people are like, that's never happened here. How did that happen? And that's interesting. So what is happening in so many of these floods, like in North Carolina, the terrible flood that Ann Vandersteel and Doc Chambers and Gary Haven were out there working on this. Gary Haven was just out there in his helicopter again, by the way, in Texas. He always flies in and helps rescue people. But you're not going to know necessarily that somebody has removed a lot of water infrastructure, which may have happened 2 or 3 years ago. It could have happened a long time ago, right? You just haven't seen a big flood happen yet, so that suddenly you're swept away. So we have to actually start going out and mapping infrastructure that is either not being maintained or is actually just intentionally being removed to depopulate us. So let's go through this there's other websites about like this, by the way. So this is dam removal in Europe, annual reports. So you can see the address up there. So if you want to go look at it yourself, you can screenshot this. So it's very interesting to look at these websites. So you can see they're returning it to nature. The World Economic Forum on their website talks about doing this. I mean, on their website, they've got the beavers building dams and all that stuff, and and bears coming back, and the people gone. So these invasions that are happening with Africa and Asia moving into places like Ireland, this is not about labor. They don't need the labor. This is about using the populations that are coming in to genocide the Irish and us and Japanese. That's happening here as well. and like the death jabs are part of that architecture of weapons, right? And then eventually, of course, the globalists can kill them off, because depopulation has been something that people have done for millennia. I've got so many books on how to depopulate here. This one here is from where is this one from? 1854, I think. This is an amazing book. Yeah, here it is. Overpopulation and its remedy. Look at this. I mean, there's so many books. This is from 1854. This is original. This is not a reprint, by the way. Masako's trying to focus in on it. Yeah. If you take a screenshot, you can, oh, maybe I'll pull it back so it should be in. Oh, right there. Okay. Masako told me to. But if you want to screenshot that, you can look it up, or I'll just read it out for you again in case it's, so the light's not great. So overpopulation and its remedy. Yeah, that's from 1854. And I got a whole stack of books like this and a whole bunch more on the shelves, and a bunch, unfortunately, still in boxes. And let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry, 1846. This one is from William Thomas Thornton. So, yeah, distress prevailing among the laboring classes of the British Islands, and into the means of remedying it. Yeah. And so I've got all kinds of books on this stuff here. And here's one. Which one is this one? This is the rural depopulation in England and Wales from 1851 to 1951. This is old stuff. This isn't anything, a lot of people think that these globalists suddenly woke up one day and they got a new idea in their head. No, this is old stuff. And, like the Venetians using the Mongols to sack places, to sack competitors and all that stuff. So there's another one. Here's another one here. France faces depopulation. I think this is from the 60s, right? Another interesting book. Yeah, I got a huge. This one's from 1968. I got a bunch of these books, man. And here's one. The Secret of Rural Depopulation. This is just a paper that was taken out of another book. This is 1904. I'm gonna check it out. That screenshot that and find it online. You can read it yourself. The Secret to Rural Depopulation. This is 1904. So these things that we're doing, that we're seeing, are nothing. Fabian Society. People know who those are. And so here's another one. Rural depopulation in certain tidewater and Piedmont areas of Virginia. This is a reprint. Oh, Masako said hold it out. So, she'll focus in. And thank you, Masako. And yeah, so you can find this. You won't be able to read them all. I mean, I haven't been able to read them all. I've read some of them, but then after that, it gets to be you're reading the same story over and over again. I mean, you can learn more by reading more, but at some point it's diminishing returns. And then I go into another sector of what's going on. But you see the water infrastructure removal here. Amber Barrier Tracker. Help us track. Here, there's an app here. This app will help you if people are putting infrastructure in, so that the busy anti-beavers who are destroying the dams and the levees and the dikes and all that, they want to know when people are putting things in so they can take them out. Now, if levee infrastructure is removed or damaged during a time of great water, I mean, all of Tokyo could be flooded. I was in Bangkok when Bangkok got flooded. That was epic. So I spent a lot of time with the prime minister at that time. I'd go see him and have coffee or whatever. And we were talking about this massive flood in Bangkok. Many people may have seen this. Certainly, if you're in Bangkok, lived in Bangkok at the time, you definitely saw it. It was just a massive flood, a lot of rain. And I asked Abhisit, the prime minister, like, how did this happen? Of course, Bangkok is built basically in the worst place you could build a huge city. Eventually, it's probably going to get flattened by earthquakes. That's what the seismologists have been saying for many years, because it's built on, unsteady land. And if there's a big earthquake, it's going to shake it down probably. But when it's also very low. And so when they had these huge rains up there in other parts of Thailand, the farmers, they have all of these little levees because they're rice farmers, right? And farming other things as well, but a lot of them are rice farmers, and they, so the farmers in their villages were getting flooded out, so they started opening. They were, out there with their hose, and their little tractors and stuff, doing it at a local level, but it was thousands and thousands of them, right? And so it was frustrating to the prime minister and others, because they're like, we've told the farmers, just don't break your rice fields, leave the water, let your village flood, and we'll pay for it. We have plenty of money. Thailand's rich. Thailand's very rich, right? That's why they call it Teflon Thailand. They save in gold, right? I mean, seriously. And I mean, dead seriously, they save in gold, and they got lots of it. There's no problem for the government of Thailand to pay for that, but the problem was in trust, and the farmers did not trust the government. And Abhisit, the prime minister, he told me, he goes, our problem is just basically credibility. They don't believe that we'll actually pay for it, or that we'll pay enough for it. But if they really believed us, if we had that credibility, then their villages would get flooded, but it would save us massive amounts of damage here in Bangkok. Well, anyway, it flooded in Bangkok. You can look online and look at the amazing videos and photos. I was out there in the middle of it, walking, in the flood. It was pretty tremendous. And it was not like a flash flood, though. Some floods come in more like a tide, and some come in like a flash flood. And this was more like a tide. And it was pretty bad. And so, but at the end of the day, it was because of thousands and thousands of little infrastructures were intentionally broken upstream, and because the villages and the little towns didn't want to get flooded, so Bangkok got flooded. Well, this can happen today in Tokyo. I mean, when we looked at the relief map, when Misako and I went to a local library here in Japan and looked at a 3D relief map, and you look at the levees and the rivers going right down there through Tokyo, it's not hard to figure out that a lot of people in Tokyo are living in lowlands. It's pretty clear. And keep in mind, that's a lot of concrete, right? So it's not like, now what, Japan is Japan. It's got a lot of first class infrastructure. There's no question about it. But Japan is also human, and Japan is got economic problems. And what will they do? I know what they'll do. They'll do what everybody does. They will stop doing maintenance. They will stop doing that thing. And also, let's get down to depopulation. You see, when everybody thinks of Japan these days, they seem to bring up very often that the birth rate is really low. Everybody seems to know that about Japan, just like they know about chewing gum in Singapore, right? And then they're like, and it's automatically bad. But what's quite interesting is, you know, all these books on how to depopulate, and part of that's just kings trying to modulate the amount of people they have, right? Based on stuff, right? They need more people for some war they want to conduct in another generation or two. They make more people or whatever, or they need more labor. They bring in slaves, or let, other people come from other countries, guest arbiters, Germans would call them. And the next thing you know, anyway, but we've got this idea that that low birth rates are automatically the worst thing on planet Earth, while talking one sentence later, we have too many people, right? I mean, seriously, the same person will go from we have billions too many people to, oh, it's a tragedy. Korea is not having enough babies. And so, which is it, right? It's neither or, it's neither nor. It's just it's the circle of life. But one thing that certainly has happened to Japan is their economy is not doing so well. So the maintenance is not going to be there. I know it's not going to be there, because that's just how these things go. And anybody who's ever been around communist countries, and back in the heyday, they were building all kinds of infrastructure. But by the time I showed up, they had gone through the life cycle of depreciation, and everything was maximally depreciated, right? And nothing's working. Elevator's not working. You're stuck with the elevator halfway between floors, and you're like, should I try to get out of here quick, or am I going to get chopped in half? That sort of stuff. That was normal, right? Turn on the water and takes a minute of gurgling and sputtering, and the stinky stuff's coming out. You're like, okay, no bath today because we're not going to jump in that poison. I mean, that's the way it was in the communist countries. They went from, hey, we're going to do great to we don't have any money and everything depreciates. That's what's clearly happening already in the United States. Clearly, look at the roads that you drive down, bumpy everywhere. Look, so we have to expect that even if there is no hostile cloud seeding or let's say weather manipulation, it doesn't have to be cloud seeding. Even if there's no hostile cloud seeding or weather manipulation, but the infrastructure is broken down due to a poor economy, keep in mind a lot of the infrastructure that we have was built when we were very, very, flush with money, right? Flush with gold, right? Back when the United States was actually far richer than it is now in many ways, right? And Japan is the same. But now we've got all this, trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure. It's unbelievable. Keep in mind, I think 4,000 miles of canals were built in the 1800s in the United States alone. Like I think about 4,000 miles of. The only reason I know this random knowledge is because I read all these books. Well, I haven't read all these books, but I read a lot of them and I spend a lot of time in them. But about 4,000 miles of canals built in the United States just in the 1800s, right? So of course, we're complaining that Panama is not maintaining the Panama Canal and that sort of thing, because and the Panamanians are, they've got money problems down there as well. So I mean, and actually, Masako and I, we went into a fire station there on the Panama Canal on the Atlantic side, and they only had about half the number of men that they needed. They didn't have enough equipment. I mean, you could have one of those, electric car ship fires in the Panama Canal, and that could be a problem, and they don't have the actual. What I'm telling you right here is straight up hardcore intelligence. Listen to what I'm telling you. They don't have the fire response infrastructure for the Panama Canal. That what I'm just saying right there, I don't think has ever been in the news. We saw it firsthand, right? And that's they don't have the money. What's happening with the money? I do not know. But at the end of the day, Panama Canal is incredibly vital to the United States and many other people in the world. So it's not just uh, roads; it's the water infrastructure. Thousands of miles of canals, some of which would be Panama Canal, right? And the levees on the Mississippi and the Ohio rivers. Look at the Ohio River and the Mississippi River flood in 1937. Look what happens if you get a lot of rain and those levees don't hold. It's a bad day, especially right now with the much larger populations that we have and much less civilized populations that we have. It'll be Planet of the Apes. And so that's something you have to think about when you're buying a home. I mean, I want to be uphill. You know what I mean? I want to be on near a ridge line. I don't want to be down in a valley that there's a lot of water infrastructure up the valley from me. And some, at some point in the future, it either breaks or it's just not maintained, or, some goofball blows it up with explosives and or that sort of thing. Or they just remove it in one of these programs. But in any case, I'm rambling on. But I wanted to talk about that. The weather modification obviously is quite real, and Disney made a movie about it in when was that? 1950s or so. I put it on Substack recently, and it was a movie about modifying hurricanes and diverting hurricanes, doing it from space. So this is roughly the 1950s or 1960s. It was, and it's on my Substack. So Disney actually did a little film about it, right? So these sorts of things are and by the way, speaking of subs, oh, I see some comments popping up, Misako. Um, uh, and let me see. I can try to read the. Uh, let's see. Oh, can you scroll up? I can't see the top comments. Oh, you're welcome, Adam. Let's see. Let's roll any questions in there. I'll try to answer them. Thank you, Cleveland and others. And thank you, by the way, anybody who actually supports this. When I basically attack China, Zionists doing genocide, Trump doing the death jabs, basically there's practically almost nobody left that'll support my work. There are a few out there, and some of them, one of them in particular, I messaged today. Thank you very much, very very much. And let's see. Oh, David Antofsky said, "What happened to the water infrastructure of Libya?" Good question. And if you know anything about that, please say. And Tom says, "What percentage of the way to socialism would you guess the U.S. is?" Well, we're way there. I mean, we're there. There's no question about it. It's getting worse. There's no question. Actually, we're clearly a fascist state at this point. Fascism. What is fascism? Actually, since we've got a bunch of old books here, I can show you what fascism is. Um, well, here, how about this book from 1854 or whatever year it is? A fascicle. A fascicle is this in a book. These little parts here that bind it together. See, this is probably 16 pages per fascicle. I'm guessing 8 pieces of paper. I'm guessing I didn't see the fascicles there. A fascicle is like how a broom is bound together. So there's all these little fascicles here that like you can see them, and they're bound together by this, right? The binding. So the fascicles are, it means like the fascia around your muscles, right? It's binding it together. That's what a fascicle is. Fascism is when industry, business, is so entwined or co-sanguinated with the government that they're inseparable. For instance, France has been fascist since forever. And I mean, their intelligence apparatus can work directly for their companies and that sort of thing. Now, for years, our intelligence apparatus was not supposed to work for private enterprise, but countries like Israel and whatnot, they're completely fascist, of course, because the industry and the government are actually one, right? And the United States has largely become that, not completely. There is still some, certainly at local level, discretionary abilities, but people are increasingly, they just are surrendering it. And so now, eventually the oversight is done by the people being overseen, like the FDA. I mean, overseeing pharma. I mean, I mean, the FDA is pharma. I mean, it's like, obviously. So we've got the Kennedy dude that wanted to go to the Darien Gap with me. Look, he's turned out to be another clown. So everybody's all happy about. Many people are happy he's taking some dyes out of the food or whatever, allegedly. And but they're still going to go ahead with death jabs, which is something, by the way, Masako is in the middle of. The death jab stuff. She is in the middle of all the scientists here. She just did an interview tonight about it. We're going to take a train and she's got to do another speech here coming up here shortly. And she works with Dr. Yasufumi Murakami, another Japanese scientist. The study of 21 million records and saying that about 600,000 Japanese have died from the death jab so far. That was released the other night when Masako was actually the one that organized a bunch of people that came on and talked about it. Japanese scientists like Dr. Yasufumi Murakami. He's the nucleus of this. He's a very interesting man. We spend a lot of time with Dr. Murakami. Masako talks to him every day, and we've been to his lab and that sort of thing. And in any case, everybody needs to be interviewing Dr. Murakami or Masako about this. But this is all part of I was talking about fascism, and I go back to the death jabs. How is it that these death jabs are released upon the world as weapons, which is what they are? And because of fascism, actually, because the government and industry are one. So industry can force people, you can't get on the airplane because they'll use the government as the enforcers, right? So Middle Tennessee, Masako is writing these notes, by the way, so she's awesome. So by Middle Tennessee. Thank you, Michael. I am a supporter. Oh, thank you very much. Let's see. let me put these glasses on. Would you, it's dark here. Would you do some videos where you talk about the best survival equipment? I followed what you've said about personal water filters. Actually, where is my water filter? I always got the thing. I've got a bunch of those actually. I use those Catadine filters, and everybody knows, by the way, I don't do any endorsements, right? Um, for products. Uh, and so when I say Catadine, that's what I have. That is, I'm not endorsing them. I am endorsing it in a sense. I just don't get paid for it. I don't know anybody at the company, but I've used Catadine water filters for maybe 25 years. I've still got the same one I started with here somewhere, and I still use it. And the Catadine pocket filter is good if you get into a flood or something. You can. I don't travel anywhere without my water filter. So, I know I can go for a long period of time without food. And before I took Masako to places like, Darien Gap, she did 4 days without food because, you want to make sure that everybody's good to go sometimes, because sometimes when we're out there operating, I don't want to have to think about food. If we're out operating in the jungle, I don't want to have to think about, we got to get lunch, breakfast, and dinner. I'll be like, yeah, we're not going to eat today. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to eat tomorrow if we don't have, if we don't have time for it. And if everybody's good with that, if you can just erase meals as part of the equation, we can get a lot more work done downrange. But usually we actually can eat. But the water filters, it's hard to do without the water. So I carry the Catadine. But also at home, we've got different types of filters. But we could talk about survival equipment on another time. But one thing I have everywhere I go is lights. You can hardly get within arm's distance from me. I probably got 5 lights sitting within 3 arms distances from here. Like here, I always got a light. There is no way I go anywhere without a light. And especially when I was in the wars, man, you better have yourself a light because things happen. Um, Monica Reyes, do you believe Florida is safe to move into? I currently live in New York. My answer to that would be no way. I love Florida. I grew up in Florida. But I'm looking at this from a military perspective. That's a death trap. And Ann Vandersteel, you should ask Ann Vandersteel about that. She's a great friend of mine. Let Ann talk about that. She lives in Florida. And many people ask me about Panama, and they've been asking me that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and I've always said no. And well, I mean, if you're there for some other reason like business, or you just have money to burn or that sort of thing, then Panama would be great. But insofar as stability goes, I'm just not seeing it. Panama also, during the death jab era, which will probably come again, the Panama was locked down like one of the worst countries on planet Earth. I mean, it was locked down horribly. And Matt Tomlett, my good friend that lives down there, or Chuck Holton was there as well. Matt Tomlett or Chuck Holton. A lot of people watching my show watch Chuck Holton, and Chuck can tell you all about the lockdowns, as can other people who were in Panama at the time. But no, Florida, to me, I love Florida. I'm a Florida man deep down inside, and I always have been, I always will be. But at the same time, I'm realistic about, where I would be if things go badly. Florida ain't one of them. Remember, Florida is now a huge vacation spot. People travel from around the world to go to Florida because it's an awesome place. And when you're in Florida, look at the water infrastructure there. The water infrastructure in Florida is intense. I mean, but you won't tend to notice it because we don't have big dams or anything, because the highest part of Florida is about 100 meters tall. It's about 300 feet, I think, right? It's up in North Florida. So Florida, the highest mountain in Florida is like, you can't get maximum speed on a skateboard going down it, right? It's short. Florida is flat, right? And so, but we get a lot of rain, right? And so you have to be able to manage that rain very quickly. So you'll look around Florida, the water infrastructure is really intense. It's a work of art. But Florida, man, I got some great books on actually the conquering of Florida and all this stuff. I got some books from the 17 and 1800s here. Anyway, I'll pull them out some other day. But Florida was one of the last states that was actually settled, believe it or not. So all that was to set the table. You know how I ramble on things, what I was saying is Florida is a big tourist place, got great water infrastructure, great everything. Look at our roads, man. Look at Florida roads compared to everywhere else in the country. Florida's got. I grew up in Florida, and people used to come down from up north making fun of Florida, and I'm like, now I go up north, I'm like, you ain't making fun now, are you? Right? Florida's got the best roads, the best everything, right? Um, but it was also one of the last states settled. Why was that? Right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Columbus and everybody else was coming. Ponce de Leon was a big guy there, and anyway, but Florida is tough. Uh, it's just before there was electricity. I mean, if your electricity goes out in Florida, there's going to be a huge death toll. If it goes out for like a month or two in the summer, there's going to be a lot of people die. Right? Florida was there's mass graves there for yellow fever. Malaria was quite intense. Of course, I should say the Spanish brought yellow fever to the Americas, and the Americans gave syphilis to the Spanish. So we did an exchange of diseases there. They're like, here, have some malaria. The Spaniards are like, have some malaria, and the syphilis and the Indians are like, here, have some venereal disease. And so it was a nice exchange. And so, but Florida was the last major, uh, you know, uh, state to be truly settled, because it's a tough state to live in if you don't have the architecture running. If the water infrastructure is not there, right? If the electricity goes off, it's going to be game on. How many people are in Florida now? 20 million, 21, 22 million. That's a big population. And I-75, of course, is an I-4. I mean, you can see that it's been a while since I've been back, but I've watched over the years how like I-4 increasing traffic jams, and I-75 and all that, and I-10. I mean, any case, if you have money to burn, definitely Florida. And I love Florida, but looking at this and imagining how I think things are going, my answer is a big no on Florida, and it's a big no on Panama as well. Masako is writing down a question here. Let me keep scrolling through here. Um, we had a competition in Panama of Masako. Oh, that was the end of that part of the website. We had a competition in Panama, Masako and some Matt Tomlis kids, and we were seeing if Masako could write faster in Japanese. We would say, a sentence, or if they could write it quicker in English. You'd be surprised how quickly people that can write Japanese, they can say stuff faster and fewer space, and less space and a lot less time. It's pretty wild. But she's writing in English now, so it takes her a while. So Melinda says, "Where are some good places to live these days?" And and well, we went down and we looked at Argentina. I think everything at this point is temporary. Argentina. I would be cautious of Buenos Aires for sure. They've had some floods, by the way. And China and Zionists are going to be fighting over Argentina, by the way. And Masako and I, we went there, and we stayed in Argentina for a couple months, about 8 months or 9 months ago, and we went in many places, but we went to a cannabis exposition, right, in Buenos Aires, and there was a huge amount of children, and they were literally smoking dope with the children on their backs. And now, again, as somebody who studies war, uh, uh, when I see that, I know they're basically dropping weapons almost from like B-52s when they're pushing intoxicants. Look, these books here, I probably got 60 books of these, and so many more are on indigenous people. These are all about Native Americans, right? I've got 44 of those, and I've got another probably 60 or 80 actually on indigenous cultures around the world. I study this a lot, and you can't pick up a book without watching how intoxicants were used to destroy these cultures. and how not just indigenous people in all parts of the world, but also Chinese using it opium against Chinese, Chinese using opium against Taiwanese, against or people from Formosa and Thai people in Thailand, and British using opium against Chinese, and it's a melee, right? And we see this down in Argentina. They're bringing the dope in, and I know what this means. It means that somebody is setting the stage to destabilize Argentina. That's exactly what it means. It was an exposition. And when we walked into the exposition, they had all kinds of children there. They were writing stuff. There's like mushrooms growing next to the stuff that you're not real mushrooms, but pictures. And they had all these. You just have to. I put it on Substack quite a few times. But anytime you see suddenly that dope is legal, which Trump has tried to help push it through in Florida to make Amendment 3 in Florida. He tried to get that to pass in Florida, but DeSantis pushed back, like they don't want legalized cannabis in Florida, and there you go. And so Lisa says, "What about South Carolina? I love South Carolina. South Carolina is great, but at the end of the day, if we don't defend ourselves, there's no place in America is going to be safe." No place, right? If we don't stop this, there's not going to be any state that's going to be safe. There's just going to be states that are less dangerous. And so, and that's it. I mean, the same here in Japan. It's not like I'm here in Japan because it's safe. It's not like I go to Texas so much because it's safe. A lot of Texans would say to me, oh, it's good that you're here. You're here, and we know how much you study these things. And they thought it was a good sign. I said, listen, brother, I'm in Texas. That means you should be probably packing up and leaving or getting ready to stop this crap, because I'm in Texas because it's a war zone, right? That's why I'm in Texas. I'm not in Texas because it's a safe zone. I'm not in Japan because it's a safe zone. Japan is under attack. I've written 3 books on Chinese information war against Japan, right? And they're all about 10 years old, but I've been all over Asia and China and all that, and I'm watching the information war that China is doing. And by the way, the Chinese are trying to persuade a lot of indigenous people that they are actually Chinese, and we're all big brothers and sisters here. But what they're really doing too, like Masako, she's sitting right here running this stuff. She's from Okinawa, so the Chinese are trying to persuade the Okinawans that the Okinawans are actually Chinese, right? And they're trying to get them to speak old dialects there, right, in Okinawa. All right, you see, in Okinawa is the Ryukyu Islands, right? They used to call them the Luchu Islands. President Grant warned about this in 1879. And anyway, those are strategic islands. They have been since back then. You can find it in Grant's letters and Grant's papers. There's about 32 books on Grant's papers, which I have not been able to get my hands on those books, but I downloaded all the PDFs, and in volume 29, of Grant's papers, which would be from the 1800s. If anybody's got those books and you would like to donate them or sell them at a low price, I want them, because I love reading Grant, and Al Johnson. He would be, if I had those books, he would be on an airplane over here, and I wouldn't be able to get him out of my house, right? Because he and I are always talking about, because Grant was quite brilliant, and he was back here spotting a lot of this stuff in the 1800s. That man was unbelievable. And so he was down in Panama, he was down in Mexico and Texas and all that stuff. But in any case, he warned about Luchu, which Ryukyu Islands, which is now Okinawa. He was warning about it way back then, right? But what they're trying to do, the Chinese are trying to persuade people like Masako here that she is actually Chinese. And they've got the 5-clawed dragon there in Okinawa, right at a place where all the Chinese tourists land. Where am I going with this? In addition to trying to persuade Masako that she's Chinese, and she's like, oh no, I'm Japanese, hardcore. Masako is as Japanese as I am American, which is pretty hardcore, right? And so she's proud to be from Okinawa, and I'm proud to be from, right now she's doing like this. I mean, her last name Ganaha is from samurai, 3 syllables. I mean, she's from samurai descent, and it seems to be in her genes. And so uh, but what they're also trying to do, the Chinese are trying to, they work to persuade the Chinese that people like Misako are Chinese, and that the people in the Darien Gap are Chinese, those indigenous people in Honduras and Mexico. I've got one book on Chinese in Mexico, how they fused, and so they're setting the stage, the information stage. The Chinese are to take Mexico, right? Now the Mexicans will say that's impossible. We'll fight them back, and say, yeah, well, they'll crop dust you with chemicals or something, and you won't, and you'll be dead, right? And so this is no joke. This is big boy war, right? And so but what they're trying to do, the Chinese are doing, like when you go to their museums, I've been to some of their museums, like at Nanjing, huge museum. And what they're doing is trying to persuade the Chinese that all these indigenous groups are actually Chinese, and that the Chinese were there first, and therefore America is ours. And they're very open about this. Even in a lot of their English language propaganda, they're open about it, because a lot of the Chinese don't even speak Chinese, don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese or Fujianese or any of that anymore, because they grew up in places like Panama, and they speak Spanish. And they grew up in places like Mexico, and they speak Spanish. They grew up in places like the United States, and they don't speak Mandarin, they speak English, right? And many of those Chinese that grew up in America are as American as I am, and they feel American, and they are American. And then there's others who, when push comes to shove, the Chinese know, because that's just the way these things go. There's a substantial part of this bookshelf, just this one here, that's about anthropological warfare. It's a huge part of warfare, right? And and so anyway, that's just the way these things go. Anyway, there's some more questions here. I'll take all night. Billy says, you were right about Donald Trump all along, brother. Love listening to your program and seeing what you have what what you have sounded. Barriers, issues, always informative. Thank you. God bless you and take care. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, and a lot of times it's not whether or not, because I know Billy, he's incredibly intelligent, but it's not whether or not that we all saw it. It's just that whether we allow ourselves to see it. Like, basically, I call it weapons free. Like when you walk into and you're flipping all the switches on the weapon systems, like you have to be armed. Everything is armed. All the weapon systems are armed, right? And that's the way I am with my thinking. I will think. I have no guardrails on what I'm willing to think. And that's the only way that I can see through Trump instantly, right? Because I have no guardrails, right? I know that if I get things wrong, people can die. And I mean, right then, right? I've seen so many people die, even I can't remember, right? And a lot of that is from just one little mistake. Boom, you're dead that quick, right? And one of the last missions I went on in Afghanistan, one of my tent mates made one bad move, step, boom, blew his legs off, blew his arms off, and he died. It blew an arm off, and he died, right? And that was normal, right? We cannot afford lies, and we can't afford not to see what's obvious. And so I pay the price for it. I'll tell you that one thing, because I was told before by somebody quite large, whose name everybody knows, that you could have the keys to the kingdom. That's a name that everybody knows. Told me that years ago, and I'm like, I guess I won't be getting in that kingdom, because I answer to somebody else, and it ain't those guys. This is the best book here, by the way. that's a good one right there. That's a survival manual. I like the big books, by the way, because they're easier to read, and these old ones have it has a lot of maps in it and stuff. Like, often when they're talking in the Bible, you can't make heads or tails about this place or that place, but these old Bibles, they got maps and stuff, and you can fold it out, and and makes it a lot easier to track the story. And but on the mice scale, almost everybody can be captured by, and when it comes to counterintelligence, there's of course what's called mice: money, ideology, coercion, ego. I don't go for the money. I don't go for the ego, because I have an ego. Of course I have an ego, but it's subordinate and coercion doesn't work well with me, right? Obviously not. And look how many people have tried to, like, we're going to sue you into oblivion. HFM told me that, the biggest magazine conglomerate in the world, and I bankrupted one of their magazines, Shock Magazine. Look up Shock Magazine, Michael Yon, right? So I don't easily intimidate because I'm not afraid to die, right? And but I am ideology, and when your ideology is a big I ideology, we're the type of people that they eventually kill because they can't win you over, like Alex Jones said one day. And I wonder if he was responding, talking about me, actually, and I say that for certain reasons. He said, the people that are going to take the money take it instantly, and the people that don't take it instantly never take the money, right? He was in I think he was talking about me because it was proximate to some stuff, some conversations. And so, and obviously I haven't taken the money. And so, but at the end of the day, we're in a state of war, and we don't have time for any nonsense. And thank you, Brave Tart. I love your name, Brave Tart. And Picture Lady, Michael, should we start doing things as groups and neighborhoods and communities, make neighborhoods that can exist without government infrastructure? You always need to work on your human infrastructure, right? And it's important to do this methodically too. First of all, know your neighbors, right? And also, I've told the story about a former special forces man down in Texas. I know a lot of special forces guys in Texas. Texas is like a place where a lot of ex Green Berets and Delta Force and SEALs and all that, they all seem to conglomerate there. And but one old special forces guy, he actually came down to Mexico and picked me up one time when I needed a ride back into America. But at his church, he made a spreadsheet out of all the skills everybody's had. I've told this story several times, and one of the older ladies in the church, she was afraid, and because she's like, I don't have any skills, I'm not of any use to anybody. She doesn't have much money and that sort of thing. And he's like, come on, you didn't get to be this age. You have grandchildren and great grandchildren. There is no way you got to that age without a lot of skills. You know what I mean? Like my grandfather, my grandmother and grandfather, my grandmother knew how to, uh, pressure cook and all kinds of things, right? They would, we'd never throw food away because it would go to the worms, which we use for fishing. It was right out the back door. And, and, and so, he realized that she knew how to pressure cook, and he told her, my special forces friend down in Texas, one of many actually, and he said, well, you know how to can, and none of these young people know how to can. So you're in charge of canning operations. So just tell me what you need, make a list, and make a good list. Don't be like skimping on it, and I will somehow make sure you get that stuff. And then you'll start giving classes, and you'll help young people learn how to can. And you will never be without a job, because we need the knowledge that's in your head that the young people don't have, like sewing. In my bedroom at my grandparents' house, my grandmother had an old sewing machine. It was one of those pedal pump types. You know what I mean? And she would, like, if we tore something, she would sew it up. You know what I mean? And it's funny. Tim Lynch, he's a retired Marine officer, infantry guy. We were in Afghanistan together, and he said one time he was out with some non-military types. I don't know, he ripped one of his shirts or something. I don't remember, but he just pulled out his sewing kit and he started sewing it up, and they were all freaked out. Like, how does a Marine, a retired Marine officer, know how to sew? He's like, how do you not know how to sew? Are you kidding? Every Marine has a sewing kit. That's like soldiering 101. There ain't a special forces, there ain't a SEAL out there or a Ranger out there that can't seal up, that can't sew his shirt back together. I'll guarantee you a Ranger or a Marine infantryman does not exist that doesn't know how to sew, right? And but those are important skills. And any case, let me get to more. I'll go on all night long, and y'all get tired. Actually, right now it's what time is it? It's 11:30 here. Let's see, at night. Let's see. Maria said, "Goodness, you got hefty." Yeah, I did. I'm a big honey. Let's see. Let's see. Is Paraguay an option? I haven't actually been to Paraguay. Although, there's a lot of Germans there, people of German descent, interestingly, in Paraguay. But some people I've talked with like Paraguay, but I haven't actually been there. So I can't answer that. I don't know the answer. French bulldog, the goal to tax the very air you breathe. Oh, no kidding. I mean, clearly, like the CO2. Yeah, yeah. They think they own it all. Climate change is man-made. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, they're and they want us dead. They want the world to be their big park. Now, keep in mind, none of this is new. None of this is new. Can you scroll up, Masako? Because I can't hit the. It won't do it from mine. Yeah. Oh, there's Mike Adams. Let's see. Picture lady. What did she say? Companies too big to fail because we have become fascist. Yeah. Too big to fail because they have too many congressmen they own. Let's see what Mike says. oh, 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 that's not. Oh, that's Mike Adams leaving. Actually, let's see what Mike Adams said anyway. Because I like to. We were just talking with him last night. Mike Adams, Health Ranger, says Trump is right now setting fire to nearly his entire support base. He is. I mean, Trump's a Zionist, straight up. He said, anyway, Health Ranger saying Trump is right now setting fire to nearly his entire support base. The ones who will go along with this cover up are weak-minded, weak-spined sycophants who don't even matter. Yeah, I mean, we're down to that. The influencers with real reach are the ones driven by principles and passion, and they are the ones who Trump is throwing under the bus with this sort of nonsense right this very minute. We will soon see former MAGA champions calling for Trump to be impeached. I call for him to be impeached. And it also reveals that there's no one Trump won't toss overboard in order to, yeah, others can read this. Mike's right, and keep in mind, how was I able to spot Trump so instantly? Because you can support people that are very similar to you. I mean, I'm sorry, you can spot them instantly. People that are very similar to you, you can spot them instantly, right? Like I was able to spot Masako instantly as being like a very serious person, right? Because I'm a very serious person. And I was able to spot that instantly in her, right? But you can also spot your opposite, right? You can spot your opposite instantly. That's why my sister used to say I have such good gaydar, because I'm not gay at all and I can spot gay instantly. And so it's just like obvious, right? And so many times people are like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "How'd you not?" But as I got older, I started to realize, oh, you can spot your same and you can spot your opposite. And by the way, some of the most serious soldiers I knew were actually gay. So it's not. And so I'm not actually slamming it at all. I'm just saying that's just that's their thing. But I can spot it, right? And I can spot Trump instantly. He's a traitor, and I'm not a traitor. I can see that instantly. He's a con man. I got a bunch of books on con man stuff up here that's very interesting. Like, oh, good Lord, we got to talk about that sometimes. But Trump is just every red light is red. It's everything about him. He's pushing Bitcoin now. Of course, Bitcoin is at an all-time high. And I first got Bitcoin in 2013. It was donated, and then over time because you can use it. It's quite useful. But at the end of the day, it's going to be tulip mania. I got some good books on the tulip stuff here too, by the way. The tulip mania in the 1600s there, in the 1630s, and in Netherlands is something else. But I see the Bitcoin as a combination between the Mississippi scheme, which was a French thing, and the 1700s, and tulip mania, which was a Dutch thing in the 1600s. It's like a combination between those two things. But at the end of the day, Trump is a traitor. It's very clear that he's a traitor. He's not American. He's a U.S. citizen. There's a lot of U.S. citizens that are not American like I am, and I can spot them. That guy will sell us out. He has sold us out. He's a Zionist. Zionists are not Jews. Some Jews are Zionists, but most of the Zionists in America seem to be Christians. It's the Christian Zionists that are actually destroying our country because they're the huge support base that's allowing these things to happen, right? A lot of the invasion in the United States is by Zionists, right? Not all, but a significant portion of it, right? And by the way, Zionists during World War II, a lot of the Jews killed a lot of the Zionists, right? The Zionists worked with the Nazis. I've actually got a book right here on it. It's that red and white book over there. I don't know if it's in the screen, but I won't get up and get it. But yeah, the Zionists and the Nazis worked together. You can't make up this stuff. It's the kind of stuff they like to sweep below the rug. Trump is a hardcore Zionist. Actually, I think he's not really a Zionist. He's a narcissist. And if the most powerful oligarchs that in his world anyway were Muslims, he would be a Muslim. If they were Christians, he would be a Christian. If they were anything, if they were cannibals, he would be a cannibal, right? And so he's a narcissist. The uniform that Trump wears is his skin, right? And so he was easy for me to spot about 10 years ago before the first election. Newt Gingrich called me up and he was trying to get support for Trump. And I'm like, no, I wonder if he recorded that call. If Newt Gingrich has that call, I wish he would play the recording because, basically I was like, don't you have somebody else, right? Somebody like, I give you permission, by the way, Mr. Gingrich, if you're watching this. And so sometimes we're on a weekly call and with another group of people, but it's funny. Recently I was on a call and somebody was a politically inclined person, let's put it that way, was talking about the big beautiful bill, the big beautiful bill, BBB, Build Back Better, right? Now, this is a group of people that are highly pro-Trump and highly rich, right? This is I don't know how I get on these group chats, but I've been on it for quite a long time, and so they and it's just and I mentioned that the BBB, Trump is telling you he's a globalist. He's World Economic Forum, just like happened in the Netherlands with the Bordenburger Beweging, right? The Farmers People's Movement, right? BBB, Bordenburger Beweging. So they had these election signs all over the Netherlands. I was driving all over looking at them, and they were BB better. They were telling you who they were. So I was doing these, big interviews with Jordan Peterson and Ava Vlardingerbrook and all that. Ava saw right through it. Ava actually sees right through stuff. She allows herself to see things, right? Like Masako does. You have to allow yourself to see it. Anyway, the BBB party, the Bordenburger Beweging, they took a lot of votes. I was there for the election. I was with the FVD party and their big to do, and they're watching all the election results come in. FVD is the Forum for Democracy in Dutch, and the BBB party won a huge amount of seats, and then they immediately did what Ava Vlardingerbrook and I warned about, which was start selling out the farmers, right? And they told you they were the BB better party, and the big beautiful bill. Trump told you the snake. He's always doing the parable about the snake from Natural Born Killers, right? Or it's an old parable that goes beyond that. It's the scorpion and the frog, and there's many ways that the story is told around the world by different cultures. The same story is told by so many cultures. It's the scorpion and the frog. It's the snake and the woman. You knew you were a snake. You knew I was a snake when you picked me up. That's what Trump, he reads that story over and over and over. And as soon as when I saw him do that, I'm like, he's telling you who he is. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Trump has told everybody who he is thousands of times. Like, he's still pushing the death jab in 2025. 600,000 Japanese are dead. Actually dead. 600,000 Japanese are dead from that, right? And how many Americans? So it must be a lot more Americans. Masako sent me a note. Steve Terry, you will know them by their fruit. Yep. Right from this book. You will know them by their fruit. I mean, how many times does he have to show? And not just him, but the whole It's down to us, right? Now, keep in mind, Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is a great movie. It's actually based on some books from the 1890s or so, 1880s and 90s, I think. And what was it, 6 books? And it's actually, a lot of it's about the gold and silver standard, and her, Dorothy's shoes originally were silver, and they made them red for technicolor reasons or whatever. But the yellow brick road was gold, right? And you look when they fall asleep in the opium, that's opium poppy, right? When they fall asleep in the poppy, that's opium poppy. The man behind the curtain, the oh, you always wanted the brain. Here's your diploma. You got a brain. I mean, that movie is deep. When you watch it when you're a child, it's just a cool movie, and there's the wicked witches and all this stuff. But all the witches, this is all part of the banking and all it. And ultimately, the man behind the curtain is actually quite weak. And if you know their names, and are willing to take action, then they will be instantly mitigated. So when you see the people that are actually talking like Trump, he's just a condom. He's not the people whose faces you see are not the big players, right? It's not Trump. Trump is an actor. I'm telling you, I know some insider baseball. I'm telling you, Trump was selected for that part. I know this for a fact, right? He was selected for the part. I know who selected him, right? He told me, right? So, I mean, this is real, right? It's no joke. And so this is just the way that it goes. And at the end of the day, um, um, if you keep supporting people like this, if we keep supporting people like this on the red pill, blue pill, false choice, logical fallacy, that's a logical fallacy. Red pill, blue pill, which one are you going to take? I just met you. I don't even know your last name. I'm going to take one of these pills because you gave me a choice, right? Okay. I'll take how about the no pill? And I'm not going to drink your water, but I'll drink mine. Right. And so, but that's a false choice. And so that's interesting, a deeper layer of what happened. Actually, a good movie that people might want to watch is called The Jones Plantation. I would watch that. Masako, is there any that you've seen here? Yeah, Conspiracy Realist says BBB 666. Yeah, that's not a coincidence, right? That's not a coincidence. They're always telling you who they are. And Mary Johnson says Trump lost me when he posted the gold statue of himself. Oh my God, you can't make up this stuff. He just tell you who he is, Mary, and you see it. Yeah, and Mary Johnson says they can't help themselves. They can't. Notice the World Economic Forum. The people that they choose in these roles are deeply narcissistic. One of the things about narcissists is, and it's a magic thing about narcissists, is you can pay them with their own ego, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a really good book to read. But here, let's take that to the advanced level. Let's say you're in special forces and you're learning how to do stuff like this. If you see narcissists in your group, they'll do any. Or what did Napoleon say? Something about how much you can get a man to do for a piece of ribbon, right? For a piece of cloth. Was that Napoleon? I don't recall, but I think it was Napoleon. But anyway, the fact is, a narcissist, you can pay them with their own ego. You don't even have to pay them in gold, right? They have to be constantly paid with compliments, and they're the ones, obviously, that will throw themselves a giant birthday party. And if you don't come and pay homage, I mean, you're gonna be on the outs. Now I know a lot of people watching this will be like, wait a minute, I throw myself giant birthday parties. Well, I mean, maybe you're a narcissist, maybe not, because there's a lot of narcissists out there, and some are actually very dangerous, and some of them have it under control. But the Mary Johnson says all the dead children in Gaza, that's a straight up genocide. That's a straight up Holocaust, right? The jab itself is a straight up Holocaust, right? And let's see. Masako says, please tell the audience. Oh, in the end, we will upload the archive video to Substack. Okay. Okay. And so let me keep answering a few. California refugee and the golden path they want everybody to stay on. Yeah, exactly. And Sheriff Johnson, Canada has Carney running the circus. Yep. and it's just a circus. And obviously he's just playing the role of running the circus. That's why you get those perfect hair guys like the former prime minister, the bearded boy. What was that guy's name, Masako, when we were up in Canada? Prime Minister Trudeau. The child, I can't even remember his name. I've scrubbed my memory of his name. I mean, he's just a child, but he's heavily narcissistic. They select these narcissists because these narcissists, they'll do anything, right? They will do anything. They can be persuaded to do mass genocide. They can be persuaded that they are, and there's cultures that are on a cultural level narcissistic, right? There's cultures, there's quite a few cultures that think they're the chosen people, right? That's narcissistic per se, right? That we're the chosen people. God chose us. Everybody else is subordinate. That's narcissist, right? Right. The Han Chinese are like that. The Chinese Communist Party think that they're the God's chosen people, and the Zionists are the same way. They think that they have dominion over everybody. Everybody that says anything bad about them is a target and is an enemy and is a cockroach, and they actually call them names like that, right? It's quite interesting. Actually, that makes me think of something about interesting. And here's a comment in Japanese, Masako. I don't know what it says. Let's see what Ken says. Things will only change when we change. That's true. I am very much like Michael. The problem is the problem is when we take action, the little people get scared and sell us out. Yeah, and scared and sell out is a key, because remember, cowards are natural traitors. That's like the seed of treason is cowardice, or let's say cowardice is a seed of treason, is a more accurate way of saying that. What does that say in Japanese, Masako? There's a comment in Japanese.
It says that many people are harmed, but not so many are awake.
Yeah. The Japanese comment, many people are harmed, but not many people are awake. That's true. So it's up to us. I mean, we've got to keep on it, because there's good people out there that need to be warned. And so that's why we are persistent on this, despite that it's using so much of our own life force, years of it at this point. And we've definitely saved a lot. We've definitely averted a lot of people from doing this, but there's a lot of others that are actually already dead. Mary Johnson, they will be in for a big surprise on Judgment Day, I'll say. Yeah. And conspiracy realists. Narcissism is groomed by abusers like the Rothschilds, using the Jews' culture and turning it into a cult. Interestingly, actually, we got to get Al Johnson on here one day to talk about this, because he actually is Orthodox, and we work very closely together for years. And he's a scholar as well, and he can talk about this in detail. And a lot of the truly Jewish people are really like, they realize this is putting a big target on their chest, because what the Zionists are always trying to do is, if you say something bad about Zionism, you hate Jews. It's like, no, Zionists are not most Zionists appear to be Christians. Actually, a lot of them are actually Muslims, actually, believe it or not, and a lot of Zionists are atheists, and then some are Jewish, right? But a lot of the Jewish are very against Zionism. And it's like the Democrat Party. Is that the Christian party? No, a lot of Christians are Democrats and a lot are not. It's Zionism is a party. It's a movement. Let's see what this says. Oh, let me see here. Oh, let me see. The Northwoods. Oh, Papa Yon. There we go. I keep hearing you reference comments that I'm not seeing in the live chat. Is there another chat room that I'm not aware of? Oh, one of them is on X, and one of them is on Substack. It's feeding out to X as well. And so, oh wow, I just noticed there's 3,700 people on, so I better be on my best behavior. And let's see. Yeah, narcissism. Conspiracy realist says narcissism is groomed by abusers like the. Yeah, we got to get Al Johnson on here. Actually, he might be watching. I wish there was a way to patch him in, but I don't know. He might. Can you ask him? I think he's going up to the border though, because he's doing something on. But ask him, please. Masako is going to message him. And can you scroll up on the? Oh, that's the end of it. Okay, Joshua Obilbo. I love all of my white brothers. Yeah, I don't know where you're coming up from. That sounds like a Zionist plant, actually. That sounds like that, because that's what the Zionists actually do. Is they actually they make it sound like it's some sort of big Nazi thing, um, which actually some of the most serious racists in the world. Actually, weirdly, the least racist, weirdly, is that I've seen, and I've traveled this world quite extensively. Is the least racist that I've seen are actually a lot of white Americans, believe it or not. By far, actually. Um, it's quite interesting. And conspiracy theory. What says? What is his name? Let me see. I am Jew, and I get it. Nationalism, non-Israel. What was his name? Oh, Al Johnson. Al Johnson. Actually, Al Johnson has a Substack. What's Al's? It's a really good Substack. But since it's on my favorites, I don't even remember because I just click through. Misako, what's Al's Substack? Let's punch that. Actually, he's going to come on and do a live on my Substack here soon. He was going to do it last week, but he's busy. Historical Detective Agency. I'll say it 3 times. That's Al Johnson's Substack. Historical Detective Agency. There you go. Oh, there he goes. There it is. Misako just put it up there. So, Historical Detective Agency. So, Al is quite the geek. He loves books as much as I do. And Misako and I were all like, when we were down in Panama, we would have nightly when we weren't out in the jungle or something, we would get around the table and discuss what we're reading. Mary Johnson says, I am white and I could not find a job for many years. In some places, you're not going to be able to get hired if you're white. Like down in South Texas, there's a lot of people that aren't going to hire you if you're not Hispanic. Straight up. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then here's one. Japan is planning to build a BSL-4 facility in the city center to conduct research on the Ebola virus, and I'm extremely concerned. Yamasako has talked about this quite a lot down in Tokyo, that why would you build an Ebola center in why are you doing anything with Ebola anyway? Ebola is not a great risk to Japan, period, full stop, right? Period. Why are you working with Ebola in Japan? You know, it doesn't make sense. I've read, believe it or not, it took many years, but I've read more than 6 books on pandemic because pandemic is a part of war, right? And I can talk your ear off about pandemic. I've sat down with epidemiologists and I realize a lot of them know a lot about epidemiology, which is the most ultimate whodunit science. You know what I mean? It's like epidemiology is like it's a giant Rubik's cube of Rubik's cubes. But a lot of them don't know much about actual pandemic because pandemic is like its own thing. I haven't seen anybody who actually studies pandemic per se, right? Or famine per se, like the effects of actual famine. They'll study, like I've got some books. I got one book here, for instance, on the economics of famine, right? I mean, there's people that study it. Weirdly, I just happen to have it out. The economics of famine, right? And I'm using those gold back things that I got from Mike Adams as my page markers. But the economics of famine. There's a lot of study on specific famines. I've read a couple dozen books on famine because, again, that's part of war. But there's this larger thing that always happens. If you get a big war or you get a big famine or a big pandemic, you're always going to get the other two. You'll get the other two. And I used to say this quite a lot. And finally, one of my listeners said, you say that like you made it up. And I thought that I did. There's some narcissism, I guess. And she said it was in the Bible. And I was like, you're right. The 4 horsemen, right? And so in the Bible, they knew it 2,000 years ago that pandemic, famine, and war, they go together, right? They like a triangle. And then, of course, there's the 4th horseman. People argue about what that is. But the like despotism. And so I think we've reached the end of the questions, right? And Masako's got to give a speech. So we need to pack. and 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 so we'll call it a night for tonight. I really just wanted to talk about the weather things, and you know how I am. I'll start rambling on. I really appreciate everybody who supports me on Substack or sends a snail mail check in the mail is very helpful, or anyway, because this is extremely expensive. And as you can imagine, I've pretty much alienated the big money sources, which would be Chinese. If you want to make money, you be on the Chinese side or the Zionist side. That's where the money is, right? And you know, if I were off in Israel right now, you would make huge money. I know people that are off in Israel, and you do really well there, right? And China, I mean, seriously, I'm doing it wrong if you're doing it for money. And unfortunately, though, because you do need the money to operate, and I really appreciate it. We're going to start doing a lot more live streams because we're more stable now and we're not out in the jungle. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Please share it out, by the way, because you can see, like, on my Substack doesn't even share out for some reason. It doesn't seem like it does. And my X account clearly doesn't share out. So sharing is very, very important. If you would share this, and I super appreciate the few that who do support. It's very big. It's very big help. It's very, very important. And the more money that we got, the more, I mean, we could actually hire more people to keep things going more smoothly, and and actually have a lot more output. Thank you very much, and y'all have a great night.